Hello, Scream Hearts, and welcome to a special interview edition with the deadly duo that you love so much, Steph Infection and my co-host.
I am the Ghoulfather, at your service. Greetings and salutations. Hello, Miss Infection.
Hello, Ghoulfather.
Oh, it's been far too long since I've gazed upon your countenance. I had a little gift for you, but unfortunately, it seems to have escaped. Well, I'm sure it's around here somewhere. Who do you have for us this evening?
So tonight we will be speaking to the one and only John Steele, the creator of the legendary band from New Jersey, Voice of Doom.
Oh my. Well, that should be fun, won't it?
Mm-hmm. Let's get started, shall we?
Very well then, Miss Infection.
All right, so tonight we have with us John Steele from Voice of Doom. How are you doing, John?
I'm good. Good. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Very nice. So before we get to know Voice of Doom, let's take a moment to get to know you, the creator of Voice of Doom. So what got you into music? What instrument did you first learn how to play? What musicians or bands kind of inspired you to become a musician? You know, take us back to the beginning.
Well, beginning is literally like when I was 5 or 6. My brother and my dad, my whole family were very, there was always music in the house. And my brother being 12 years older than me, my first introduction to that time was Sabbath, Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Iron Butterfly, you know, all heavy type stuff. Alice Cooper. That was what I heard with him. And my parents, who were older, you know, they grew up, they were born in the 1920s. So they were a little bit older and they were into Sinatra, Tony Bennett, swing, jazz, Broadway. There was all kinds of music in the house at all times when I was a kid. Very, very, nobody else played anything, but there was always music. Music was a big part of the house. And my cousin, who was a few years older than me, and my uncle, they were both drummers. So when I got to be about 6 years old, I just tried playing my cousin's drums. I was a drummer first. I tried playing his drums and I just kind of had it, you know, as awkward as a 6-year-old could be, I guess. But still, I kind of saw that I had it. So my dad got me a set of drums for Christmas and it just went from there. I would just put a record on and play along with it. You know, I had the big old, you know, headphones and stuff. And that was really how it started drum wise. And like I said, I had so much musical influence going on around me at all times that I really got you know, exposed to really good music, heavy stuff, not just light stuff. It was a lot of heavy, dark, like the first Black Sabbath album as like a 5 or 6 year old, just like scared the shit out of me, you know?
Yeah.
And that was a tie-in actually to the horror type stuff because my father and my brother were really into horror movies. So, you know, we would paint models and watch Chiller Theater on Saturday nights. And my dad would go shopping. He would buy us Monster cereal. So, you know, a lot of stuff kind of came into my brain at one time all together, which stuck with me throughout the years. You know, so the horror stuff and heavy music, you know, just music in general just was always a big part of my life. As I got a little older, I kind of taught myself how to play guitar. And my first real band when I was about 14, 15 was with Frankie Fender. He was a guitar player. He's about 9 years older than me. And I learned a lot from him. So as I got a little bit older, like Frankie kind of turned me on to like the Heartbreakers and, you know, the Pistols and stuff like that. I kind of picked up a lot more of the punk stuff when I was in my, you know, early teen years with him. So combination of everything prompted me to start writing songs. You know, I had a summer off in 1986 when I had a appendix operation. So I spent the whole summer just like creating Voice of Doom. You know, we were in a band at the time called The System for about 3 years at that point, which kind of started to fade out. You know, we kind of wanted to do something else. And I said, hey, you know, I got these songs I've been working on, and maybe like every drummer wants to pick up a guitar or sing something like that, like a lot of them do. You know, that's just kind of how it started. And that was the early days. And then it just kind of went from there. Didn't last long, but that was the start.
Yeah.
So that's what I understood, that it was in 1986
Right.
that Voice of Doom began with Frankie Fender. Can you tell us just a bit more about the original band and how you got together and the inspiration perhaps for some of your early songs?
Well, I mean, like, I'm not going to say that all the early songs were great, because a lot of them were probably really shitty in retrospect. But, you know, we kind of wanted to do something that was like Black Flag meets Black Sabbath. That's kind of, that was our thing. And
I hear that in your sound. I do.
Okay, well, it's good. So, you know, putting a little bit of a horror spin on it. We want it to be heavy, but not, you know, not like a death metal type thing, but just heavy with some, you know, with some breaks and, you know, some tempo changes and stuff like that. And probably like you know, it was hard to find a bass player and a drummer. We had a revolving door for a short period, and then Ricky Blades came along, who wasn't our original bass player, but he wasn't our last bass player either. But he was in the band when we recorded our EP in '87. So the London May thing kind of came to be when I was friends with Erie Vaughn from Samhain. And I said, I got some shows coming up and I need a drummer, you know, if you know anybody. And he's like, well, you know, see if London's available. You know, and I had seen them, and London lived very close to me, which I didn't know at the time. So, you know, just out of the blue, I just cold called him, introduced myself, explained what I was doing. And, you know, he's like, yeah, I'll check it out. You know, so he came and, you know, we rehearsed and we played a couple of shows together. That was one of the shows was actually the first time that London had ever played at CBGB's. And that was in 1987. And then, you know, after that, we got in the studio and recorded a couple of songs. And then that was kind of at the time where Danzig had gotten signed to Def Jam, and they made the decision to go with Chuck Biscuits instead of London. So, you know, London was from Baltimore, you know, transplanted to Jersey. And after that kind of fouled out, he was like, well, you know, I'm not going to stick around here. I'm going to go back to Baltimore. And then that was the end of it. You know, we're still friends to this day. We don't talk regularly, but, you know, we're still in touch. And, you know, he's done really well for himself. I'm very, very happy for him. You know, he's had a lot of good stuff come to him over the years. And that was really about it. We only recorded once, which was actually, no, I'm sorry. We recorded that stuff. And then with our next bass player and drummer, we recorded some stuff that didn't come out until, you know, Haim, we eventually found it and Haim put it on something. And yeah, that was really about it. The band wasn't together for too long. You know, we were only together for maybe about two years in the original lineup. And then Frankie and I, after that, kind of fell apart. Frankie and I did a new band. Well, it was we resurrected The System, which was the band we were in prior, with a different name. We were called Nasty Ammunition. And then that wasn't together for too long. Haim eventually came in to sing for Nasty Ammunition. Haim was actually he was never in the original Voice of Doom, but he was kind of like the fifth Beatle. You know, yeah. He was there, and he should have been in the band, but he wasn't. So when we decided to redo it, I said, okay, you know, you're singing, because he's a way better singer than I am. So that's how that came to be.
So you were involved with System throughout that time after Voice of Doom?
Well, yeah, it was the System with a new name, Nasty Ammunition, for about a year, and then Frankie went off and did something else, and then I started playing drums in a bunch of different bands. You had asked me about. I played in Genocide for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. I played in a band called Backseat Driver, who was from Clifton. I played with them for a few years. Haim and I did a hardcore band called Whole Shot. We were around for a couple of years. We were also in another band called Brain Injured Children for a short period of time. We kind of bounced around.
Oh, I like that name.
Yeah. And then I joined Electric Frankenstein, and that was a long lasting.
And you were a drummer. You were a drummer for them, right?
Yeah, I did drums in all those bands. Yeah, I drummed in all those bands.
How long were you with Electric Frankenstein?
I wasn't the original drummer for Frankenstein. I probably came along in like 94, and I was there until probably, I think it was maybe 98, and then I left for a while, and then I went back in 2001. And then stayed till about 2005. And ever since then, I have filled in. I've done shows with them. I've recorded with them. As a matter of fact, me and Sal and Jim are actually working on some new stuff. Sal is going to put some new stuff out with Tony from the Adolescents singing. So I don't know if it's going to be called Electric Frankenstein, but it's going to be, the nucleus of the band, with Tony singing in California.
Does anyone know this, or is this like an exclusive? Or
Sal probably put it out on social media at some point. Yeah, I'm sure it's out there.
He might.
I'm sure it's out there.
That's fun though. That's a lot of
so
fun.
That's kind of fun. It's like, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. You know what I'm talking about, Ghoulfather?
Oh, I've heard that many times. Trust me, I know the feeling.
Mm-hmm. So you answered a few of our questions.
He's good, this one.
He's very good.
In 2014, I know you got the band back together for a 5-song EP.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that, the songs that are on it, and how that came to pass?
Yeah, well, it was one of those things where I ran into Ricky Blades, of all people, who had played bass with us. I ran into him in New York at a show. And it's one of those things where you see somebody and you're not sure if it's them or not, but it's like, that guy looks familiar. You're not 100% sure. And the two of you is just kind of looking at each other like, do we know each other? One of those things. And I hadn't seen him since like 1988, So I just went up to him, I'm like, Rick? And he's like, yeah, John, right? And I'm like, yeah, holy shit. Started talking and, how are you? This and that, blah, blah, blah. I'm good. What are you up to? And he's like, oh, no, I'm not playing anymore. I just, he got married and, he's working. He's just like, yeah, I just kind of put it down, and he's like, what are you up to? And I'm like, well, it's funny. I was kind of thinking about maybe doing something again, like, because Haim over the years always, Voice of Doom really kind of never went away. It was always kind of there, like in the drawer, like, one day we're going to do this, or one day, we should write a song about this, about the swamp. We should write a song about the Satanic Church in Hackensack called King Spirit Temple. Like we always kind of had these, he's like, oh, remember that song Screams in Space? Like, we should redo that song at some point. So it was always kind of on the shelf. So I was like, you know what? I asked him, I'm like, if I wanted to do something, would you be into it? Would you want to play? And he's like, well, yeah, probably. We exchanged numbers, blah, blah, blah. And then he actually had been working on it with Carl C. Scott, who was the drummer on the first record. And he said, he says, if you want to do something, he goes, my buddy Carl would be interested in playing the drums. So I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. So it took a while, but we finally all got together, rehearsed a couple of times, and, where we record at Kevin's studio, Homebrew, Kevin, took us in, gave us a Saturday, And, we laid down the basic tracks, and I didn't really know what we were going to do with it. It was just kind of like, as we started rehearsing, it's kind of started to sound really good, and it was like, all right, let's do something with this, So the songs that were on that were kind of songs that I had been, I had kind of been messing around with over the years. I didn't know what I was going to do with them, if I was going to use them in a band or whatever. So I kind of put them together real quick and got Haim, we got the lyrics and everything down. And, that was kind of how it kind of started out as like a joke, like a song about blueberry, like, how serious can that be? But we
based on the background I'm seeing, quite serious.
We made, one, it was actually, I think it was Joe's idea one day. He's like, you should write a song called Blueberry. And I'm like, yeah, all right, why not? So that's kind of like how it came together. But that lineup never played. We just recorded and we finished it. And then Joe had heard it. Joe from Pyrrhic Victory, who's also plays bass in Voice of Doom. He says, I want to put this out. I was like, all right. So, what the hell? Why not? So we put out the 5-song EP. VOD 3, kind of another inside thing, kind of keeping along with Exorcist 3, Halloween 3. The first song on that record is Halloween 3. So, it was actually the third time Voice of Doom had ever recorded. So we called it VOD 3. But then not too long after that, Carl passed away in a car crash. He died in California. And he was friends with Ricky. And then Ricky was just like, oh, I lost my buddy. This kind of sucks, blah, blah, blah. I don't really feel like doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Which was, hey, the funny part is that when Ricky went back in 87, he brought his buddy after London in to play the drums. And then when his buddy quit the band, he went with him. So now his other buddy passed away, and it kind of held the door open for him to like leave again, So it was cool to have him for a while, to document it on record.
Yeah.
So, we lost those two guys. And then Joe and Ryan, who I play with in the 65s, Ryan plays drums, he plays bass, plays guitar. And Joe plays guitar in the 65s. He plays bass in Galanos, another one of our bands. So we just, turned to our guys and just like, hey, you want to join? And they were like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it. And that's when we started playing out with that lineup.
So we got the rundown on the that EP. Can you take us through like a quick rundown on what you've released since then? I know you have
Screams in Space.
Once you've got together, you guys put out a lot of music and a lot of EPs, and even we end it with the full-length album.
Right.
Which is one of my favorites and on my rotation.
Thank you. Well, the funny thing is that with all the material, like VOD 3 had 5 songs on it. Scared to Death, which came out second, had 4 songs on it. And then Screams in Space came out and had 5 or 6. I don't, maybe 6. So we actually could have put out one full length at the time, but we didn't. We just, once we had a working band again, it was like we got a bunch of new songs. It was like, okay, let's go in and record them, So, Haim's really into having product, which I kind of am too. But I think it really, like, I'm glad that they all came out in, consecutive years, because they all sound, in my opinion, they all kind of sound like VOD, but they're all a little different. They're not the same. I think if they all had been on, if those, 15 or 16 songs, whatever it was, had been on one record, I think it would have maybe felt a little, I don't know, how do I put this? Like, I think they were the songs for that time. Like, we wrote a bunch of songs, and this was that time, and then this was this time, and then this was this time, like a progression, or, I think it kind of.
I love the short EPs. I
yeah,
love
well,
because you get a little bit at a time, and it's not,
Yeah, well, that's another thing. I mean, me, I'm kind of from the old school of like, put as much as you can on one record, but I guess the trend kind of became not full lengths anymore. Even our full length only has 8 songs on it.
Yes. Yeah.
So that
you released 2 songs. Well, at least I don't know for certain, but I know you released Toxic Swamp before you put it on the album. So
right.
As a single. So
right.
So I enjoy that. I like getting excited and having little bits of a band,
right.
year, rather than waiting, say, 11 years or 10 years for a full-length album. So
no, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm happy with the way it kind of came out, because I think it kind of documents us along the way. Like they're not all thrash, they're not all mid-tempo. Even with Saint Blaze, which to me is the heaviest thing we've done sound-wise, and there's some longer songs on it. I think we kind of went back to organically like that Sabbathy type influence that we had, where we kind of veered away from the thrash a little bit on that, made it a little heavier, a little Slayer here and there, but still didn't lose that like Black Flaggy punk edge as well. I think the two kind of came together well on that one. I'm very happy with that record.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Now I see something interesting here, and I've got to give a quick shout out to Crowley in Horror Punk's Germany, holding down the fort over there. Now, I'm going to pronounce this horribly, Crowley, forgive me. Haunting Deutschland.
Yes.
In 2017. That must have been an interesting experience.
That was cool, because Pyrrhic Victory has some European bands on it. So the label itself kind of had a foot in Europe. We have, I believe it's France. There's a band on there, and I think his name was Heinz Gerhand. He somehow picked up on the label, and he looked at the roster of bands, and he liked Voice of Doom. So he kind of approached us and said, I'd like to re-release your first record on a compilation of Ungetum and Pyrrhic Victory. I'd like to have a split. So that was cool. So we said, sure, why not? Get over there in Europe is good. So he took a while, and then he said, you guys might want to come over here, because your record is starting to pick up. It's starting to pick up some steam. There's an interest. So we said, all right. It was only 2 shows, and we went, and he wanted to record the shows. He says, I'd like to record you guys, maybe for a live record or whatever. So, we went. We took like a week. We went there, and I forget. I know Marburg was one of the cities. I don't remember the other city, but and the venues were not that great. They were not arenas or theaters or anything like that. They were just really good, sweaty, old school punk clubs.
That sounds good to me.
That's fun. Yeah.
It was the perfect site. It was almost kind of like surreal, where like you don't really have it in the States anymore, where like people are really gonna, unless you're playing like the Warped Tour or something, where people are gonna surf and knock the shit out of each other and get all sweaty, and everybody's knocking each other down and stuff like that. That was going on there, and it was like, holy shit, I didn't even realize this stuff still existed, So we went there, and he recorded the shows. He brought in some good equipment, and not too long after that, we got the mix downs, and we said, hey, this is good, let's put it out. And that's what we did, and he put it out on his label. It was another dual release between Pyrrhic Victory and Ungetum. So that was cool. That was fun. That was a good experience. I'd love to go back there at some point. when it's safe.
Mm.
I mean, I had been in Germany. I had been all over Europe with Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So Germany was actually one of my more favorite places to play because the crowds are very receptive to American bands, all over Europe, especially. But I found that in Germany, they were really, really receptive to
I've
American
heard that
bands.
from everyone I've spoken to who's played over there.
Yes.
They've all
And
said
it's
the
cool
same.
because Europe is really cool because, well, I've been in England. Frankenstein has played, England a bunch of times, and it's like they kick you out at the end of the night, like, okay, good night, lads. Whereas in Europe, like Belgium and Spain and Germany and Switzerland, a lot of the venues will have lodging there. Like the venue will be on the ground floor, and above it will be like rooms for band, like for set up like to sleep. They have a kitchen. They cook for you. They take better care of you. If they don't have a lodging for you, they'll set you up in a hotel. They take a lot better care of you in Europe than they do in the States. So that's one advantage to going to Europe because, or at least that's my experiences.
So Germany sounds like it was amazing, but if you had to kind of pick maybe your best show or your best city or best venue that you with Voice of Doom played at, could you pinpoint one?
Well, I would have to say, since we got involved with Ronan and the whole horror punks thing, his shows are great. I mean, he's a great guy. He's a real gem to work with. I can't say enough good things about him. Our shows with him, like in the Philly area, have been probably our best ones. I don't remember specifically the names of all of them, but we've done about 2 or 3. I mean, VOD hasn't really played out all that much with this, since this came back again. So I'd have to say, I can't give you a specific, but I'd have to say anything we've done with Ronan has been fantastic. His bands, the crowds.
Yeah.
It's very cool to see that, 2 hours away from here in the Philly area, that this stuff is alive and well, and it's good. So I would have to say anything we've done with, just pick one of them, any one of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember all of them. Hein would remember better than me, but
I'm really bad, and I've been at all of them and a part of all of them. But I believe the last one we did with you may have been, was it at the fire?
Yeah, that was the last one. That was yeah. There was one that was a good one, but there was one right.
It was small, but yeah.
There was one right before that. Voltage Lounge. That's right.
Yeah.
The last one was it. There's a video of him coming up and singing Trilogy of Terror with us at the end.
Yeah, I have that.
That show that was a good one, and the one before that at the, I think it was the fire. It was kind of like a rainy, snowy night.
Yeah, we didn't have a crowd that we thought we would, and it was kind of, but I remember it being so much, we still had so much fun, and it was so,
they're all good. They're all good. Any one of those places can kind of qualify as my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good.
Look at me. I'm like, oh.
That was a good answer.
Wow, horror punks USA, really?
When we got back together, we really didn't know what audience we were going to appeal to, because, and believe me, no disrespect or trying to rob thunder for any band, but Heinz really got his ear to this, and he's the one that kind of discovered the horror punks thing. But a lot of the bands that we've played with and that we've seen, that the young and up and coming ones, I really like the way they put a lot of effort into their stage show and their costumes and stuff like that, where we kind of go up there like we're just got beards and just wearing black clothes, and we're all old, and we kind of like, are these guys gonna like us? Like, are they gonna think that we're like their fathers or something? But we found a little niche with that crew.
No.
And it's no, but that's actually kind of encouraging, because I like the fact that and I'm not patting myself on the back, but I like the fact that the younger kids, I'm 53, so anybody that's under 30 to me is a kid. My kids are 21 and 20. So I like the fact that, this younger crowd respects and appreciates guys that have been there before, that they didn't just think of us as like, oh, these guys are old and over the hill or whatever. Like we have the experience, we've done it for so many years. And I like the fact that they welcomed us with that, rather than just thinking we're old and over the hill or whatever. They gravitated to us. That's a good sign. I like that. I like what's going on there.
How you compared your sound to Black Sabbath and Black Flag. Now, if that was how you sounded in the beginning, do you think you've evolved since then, or kind of held on to that?
That's a good question, because
oh, thank you.
He came up.
It's a good question. It's a good question because it's a little difficult to answer. I will say this though, Haim and me and all of us, we all basically come from similar schools. So, for years, Frankie may have been listening to one thing, and that kind of gets embedded into him, and Haim's been listening to something, and all of us. And when we bring that in, I think it's just us. Like the Haim and I had an interview with the In My Head guys, and they were reviewing St. Blaise, and they said, like, all the songs don't sound the same. They all sound a little different, which I think is on all our records. Like they're not all thrash. They're not all mid-tempo. They're not all, some are slightly different than others, but that's just kind of the way we've always been. We're not trying to fit into one specific sound. It just kind of sounds like us. And it's just everything that we bring to the table when writing songs. And Ryan especially, he loves thrash. So he shines on the thrash ones. Mm-hmm. So if we got a thrashier one, that's, then a thrashier one may lead to another thrashier one, just because we're in that groove, mm-hmm. And then we'll pick and choose when we're making a record. So I think as much as it's evolved, I think it still kind of comes back to that, just it's just us. It's just us. We're not trying to sound specifically like anybody, but we just kind of sound like us. I know people would say things like, the Ramones, all their songs sound the same. Yeah, but they're all great. Motorhead, all their songs sound the same. Yeah, but they're all great. Mm-hmm. Like I think like even on St. Blaise, Bottom of the World, which was just a instrumental. Yes. That was an homage to Sabbath, where they would have like, an instrumental, gluing two songs together, on a lot of their albums, where it wasn't meant to be, it's just an acoustic guitar and a bass and some wind in the back, which we hadn't done before, but we did it now. And I think for us, it works.
Was that all Frankie on that one?
Frankie. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Recognize that. So I'm obviously a huge fan, but I completely agree with you, because I feel like even though it's different sounds, like there will be one song that you'll hear on an album and you're like, wow, I can hear the Sabbath. I can hear, and then next one, I can hear the little bit of thrash, but it's still metal punk. It's all grouped into like a metal punk, and then you'll hear different influences, but it's all you. And I think it all goes together, and I like that little contrast of it doesn't all sound the same. Right.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's kind of where it is. but it kind of was always that way. Even on Scared to Death and Screams in Space and 3, they all kind of sound like us, but they're all slightly different. Haim constantly, even still to this day, gets the Danzig comparison, which is obvious, big influence
on
there.
Toxic Swamp, it's very obvious, which is one of my favorite songs.
But with Saint Blaise, he actually got like a Dave Vanian comparison and an Ian Astbury comparison, which
I could see that. Yeah,
I didn't really hear that at all. But hey, if that's what people are hearing, then that's then go with it. He doesn't set out to say, I'm going to sing this one like so and so. He just,
of course not.
He just does his thing, and that's what comes out. And that's what's great about him. He has one of the most dynamic voices I've ever heard. And which is, I will write a lot because I will write where I know it's going to shine his voice. I know what keys are really good for him. So I'll know, like, okay, I write this, I'm going to hear him do this in this part. I can hear it as I'm writing it, which is good. Everything's in his, even though sometimes he may feel like, that's really high for me, and I'm like, you can do it. And he's like, all right. And then he'll do it. And then he'll be like, wow, I can't believe I did that. That was really high. He's not afraid to push himself, which is one thing that's great about him.
Wow, I love his voice. And so I know we were speaking on the sounds and also the history, and obviously this has been decades of Voice of Doom coming together. So something and especially in this young generation that we were just discussing has come up is social media. So how do you think that it has affected your band and everything, positively or negatively? Either way.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't really pay much attention to that type of stuff. I mean, obviously, I think it makes it a lot tougher for bands because everybody's on social media. So gone are the days of really having to, I mean, you don't even have to play out. You can just record stuff, release it. You don't need to have vinyl product or CDs anymore or anything. It's like everything is SoundCloud and Spotify and streaming and all this other kind of stuff. So I think it's harder to break in nowadays than it was before. I'm not on social media myself, and I don't really look at it all that much. So if people are shit talking VOD, I would never know it.
I'll keep an eye on them for you.
You might have to lay the smackdown on them, Ghoul, if they do.
I'm prepared.
I mean, as far as I can tell, it's been. Hey, listen, if it wasn't for social media, we would have never connected with the horror punks, the Horror Punks USA. So I think it's worked to our advantage, and hopefully it'll continue.
Good.
I hope that answers your question.
What you brought up, and I remember back in the day, I remember going to see a band who played in a storage locker, and just through word of mouth, 200 people showed up. For an unsigned band who didn't even have a demo. Now, with anyone with a guitar can have a band. And it's difficult to get 12 heads through the door. So things really have changed, but I do agree with you. I think in the overall scheme of things, social media has been a positive only because it does bring people together. But it has also made things more disposable, to quote Wretched, if you will. And that's one Ghoul's opinion.
Good one, Ghoul.
Thank you. So, but we are premiering, speaking of new good stuff, your music video, Beyond the Door. Can you give us a little tiny preview of that, a little sneak peek of behind the green door, if you will?
Well, what about the song, about the video? Like,
All of the above.
Oh, okay.
Chaos to the wind.
Well, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. There was an obscure movie from, I think, 1974 called Beyond the Door.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's kind of like I guess like a poor man's exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
So, it didn't start, the song itself did not start out to be Beyond the Door. It started out as kind of a heavier, Sabbathy type song, which kind of, in keeping with Sabbath thing, I hate to keep using that word, but it's kind of long, and then at the end it changes time, and it ends with a long guitar solo, very much like a Children of the Grave type thing. And then once I started writing lyrics, Haim was like, let's write it about Beyond the Door. That's another thing. Like, we always talked, that was one thing we had talked about for years. Like, we should write a song about that movie Beyond the Door. No one's done that yet. So that's kind of like how it came. Okay, the lyrics are kind of influenced a bit by the movie without actually coming out and saying, that's one thing that we've kind of done. Everything that's kind of been about a movie has never mentioned the movie.
Right.
Like Halloween 3 is obviously about Halloween 3. It's a Wonderful Life is about Exorcist 3. Beyond the Door is about Beyond the Door, but we don't actually come out and mention the movie title. So that's kind of like how that came to be. And then the video, I've only seen bits and pieces of it because Haim was editing it, and it's just shots of us playing and shots of the movie. So but from what I saw, it looks pretty good.
I like that technique because I love horror punk and everything about it. But sometimes when you hear a song about a certain horror movie, or any movie for that matter, and the song is just a synopsis of the movie, almost they'll just tell the story. Well, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened through the course of the song. It's always more interesting to me anyway, if you just take the concept and build around it.
Yeah.
So that I think is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what we've, it's kind of what we've done with that. I mean, kind of, I guess you could say, compared to like a Misfits thing, like Night of the Living Dead, where the lyrics were kind of about the movie, but not really. And it's a movie title, but the title was never mentioned in there.
You can interpret it in your own way.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that's kind of I'm not going to say the pattern we followed, but we've used that method a lot of times.
It's like the Jasons. I think they've written a song about every character of the Friday the 13th franchise except Jason. But we're waiting.
Well, they don't have to because they are the Jasons.
Oh, they are. They're the brothers.
We played with them. We played with them once. They're great.
They are.
They're great. Do you remember a band called the Mentors?
Oh, yes. Up the dose.
When I was in Backseat Driver, I guess it was like 91 or 92. We played with the Mentors, and they showed up just in regular clothes, El Duce with his big gut hanging out, and they stunk, and they were just great. And then they put the hoods on before they got on stage.
I was in the 4F club.
Oh, you were? Oh,
yes, I was.
But the Jasons never.
We'll save that for another time.
The Jasons never broke character. They showed up with the masks on, and they played. And then at the end of the night, they all broke down. They got in the van and drove away with the masks on. It was like that was awesome. They never took the masks off.
Oh,
they're very serious about their gimmick.
Before we get into the premiere of Beyond the Door, which we will be premiering right after this interview, what can we expect in the future from Voice of Doom?
Well, right now, what we're working, we are actually working on some new music. There is another live record coming out, actually.
Ooh.
Another live record coming out. I can't tell you where it's from because we're not done with it yet, but it's gonna be a double album, actually. It's a double album, and it's kind of funny the way I don't want to give it away too much, but it's called Alive Again.
Ah, I'm so excited.
Huh?
I'm so excited.
It's kind of patterned after Alive 2, Kiss Alive 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got 3 sides of live music, and side 4 is 5 studio songs. So again, 5 studio songs and a bunch of live songs, which we're actually working on the studio. So we've been working on it for a while. So once that's all done, everything will be once everything is all finished, then that's coming out. That's coming out next. So it's called Alive Again.
Oh.
I don't know when that's going to be ready, but it should be hopefully by the summer it'll be done.
I've got one that I love to ask. I mean, obviously, John, you have a rich history. I mean, you've been around the music scene for a long time. As far as the more recent horror punk bands, or just bands in general, let's say over the past 5-10 years or so, which ones have kind of sparked your interest?
That's tough.
It is tough.
What's funny? Ronan's band, I think, is great. I love his band. They're heavy as fuck, and I love his voice. So, yeah, I mean, I like his band. I don't really get out to see new music. I mean, obviously, none of us have been out in a long time, but I don't really get out as much to see new bands as I used to. So, again, not to disrespect, I'm sure there's a lot of great new stuff out there, but I'm unaware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unaware of it. So what I have been liking to do lately, and is that I'll listen to stuff by people that I may have not listened to years ago. Like I'll give you an example. Iggy Pop, for instance. Everybody loved the Stooges. I kind of stopped after Raw Power. So I'll go back and listen to some of the stuff he did later on, like the stuff in the late 70s, early 80s. I'll listen to that kind of stuff. Same thing with like Sabbath, for instance. I stopped after Never Say Die, but I'll go and I'll give some of that later Sabbath stuff a listen to because I'd never heard it before. I kind of cut it off, and then I was like, oh, after Ozzy, I don't listen to it. But then I'll go back and give it a chance. And some of it may be good, and I may have missed it, after so many years. Same thing with like Motorhead, for instance. Everybody loves the old Motorhead. Some of the later albums, I'll go back and listen to them. Things I may have missed. So there might have been a couple of great songs on here that I never gave a chance to. So rather than trying to discover new music, I'll go back and re-listen to music from a lot of my favorite bands. Stuff I may have missed because I stopped following them after a period.
I'm going to admit something. It took me a while to get past Trilogy of Terror because I love that song so much. I had it on repeat. So it took me a couple of days to get through the entire repeat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
There's another perfect example. The song is about the movie, obviously, but we don't say Trilogy of Terror. Mm-hmm. It's TOT.
Karen Black.
Karen Black stars in the TOT. So.
Oh, I think we're just about there, but perhaps you could tell people where to find VOD merch, where to find you guys, your music, and such.
Everything is online. Everything is online. Pyrrhic Victory.
So if you go to their Facebook page, you will see that they have a link to all of their links, Bandcamp, everything.
There we are.
Pyrrhic Recordings, everything where you can find everything, download everything, and look them up. So
cool.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John, for your time.
Thank you guys. It was a good chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we are looking for more great music and videos from Voice of Doom.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Be sure to tune in. Please like and subscribe.
No, because I gotta edit this. Wait a minute, let me.
All right.
God,
We're so good at what we do.
I got
This will give everyone encouragement if they wanted to start something.
You gotta say it after me, though.
All right, then. Go ahead, Miss Infection. The floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, ring number 2, Steph Infection.
You gotta realize this is what I do because I get the giggles and I have to stop for a second.
All right, I'll be quiet. Go.
I will edit everything. Don't
Don't
worry.
you edit a thing. I will not be censored.
Okay, signing off, Scream Hearts, and stay tuned for the premiere of Voice of Doom's new music video, Beyond the Door. Please like, comment, subscribe to HPUSA TV on YouTube. And stay spooky, Scream Hearts.
And remember, we may be freaks, but we are not alone. Oh dear. That's my co-host, ladies and gentlemen.
Check, please.